Hey there, welcome to the Frequency and Faith channel. My name's Cody, and today I want to talk about something that was pissing me off earlier today. If you have sensitive ears, you might just want to turn off. So, I talked last week about how on Saturdays or like the weekends during like my rest days, I would enter rest period and I would do activities. Well, let me rephrase that. I would not do some activities that I usually do during the week because it's quote unquote work, but these are things that make me genuinely happy. And so I would end up going about the whole day doing stuff that I think is good for me because it's recovering me. And then at the end of the day, I would just be like, I would get sad. And sometimes it starts at literally 1:30, right when I'm done with the gym, or maybe I'm done studying and stuff. All this messaging from myself will start entering my head. And it's things like, you're a failure, or for instance, me starting this podcast or whatnot. Obviously, you have to start out small to get big. When you start anything new, you can get those negative thoughts in your head like, hey, man, this is never going to reach people at all, which is totally whack because, for one, I didn't start this for that reason to begin with. I started this because I felt God calling me to. And on that note, I have so much faith that He is going to honor that no matter what this looks like, no matter what the reception of the activity that He called me to looks like, I know that He called me to it and He's going to bless every other area of my life because I am prioritizing the thing that He has called me to, because that's how He works. So today, when I'm starting to enter my rest period, I'll hear this negative self-talk, and it's cancer, and it's such bullshit. It pisses me off so much just thinking about it. It's like it's not true. And that's how I get through it. Like, I go to war with myself doing certain activities in life, right? Because I know it's not true. None of it's true. So if you ever have times where your brain is telling you something when you're feeling burnout, or maybe it's not even burnout, maybe it's just, I think I should be doing this because X, Y, and Z is how so and so did it. And I seen them on the internet and they seem pretty successful. So, hey, that must be the way to do it for me, because logically, that seems to be what all these thousands of likes tells me to do. They're not you. They're not you. They're not you. If they had your genetic makeup and your personality and your psychology, your emotional makeup, your past, they'd probably be different as well. Again, like I said last week, don't look at everything you see on the internet and be like, yo, this is how you have to do it. For sure. I know this. For sure. No. It's like you're only seeing snapshots of people's success on social media or this digital landscape. You're only seeing snapshots of things that are edited. They are edited. I edit out things out of this podcast. Like, I'm still going through concussion recovery. The neural pathways in my head healed incorrectly. So sometimes when I'm super tired, like I stutter and whatnot, which usually I wouldn't record on a Saturday because it's my hardest physical day, my brain is fried right now. If I go too hard, or if I'm like trying to pull words or whatnot, when I'm super tired and burned out, I'll stutter and I'll struggle to pull words as quickly as I would if I wasn't tired or worn down at all, you know? And that's just something I'm working through. Like, I'm working through the last 5 or 10% of it, which I believe that God will heal me. When I read on Reddit about concussion cases, it's so sad. I read about cases that are so much worse than mine, like not even comparable. And I'm just so grateful that mine is like so minor. But on the subject of negative self-talk, when you start hearing that stuff, you got to smash it. You have to smash it instantly, right away. I've gotten to the point where when those negative self-doubts enter my head, it genuinely pisses me off. I don't have time for it. The stuff God has called me to. And even if you don't believe in God, hear me out here. You need to smash that negative self-talk right away. And you need to go to war with it right away. Think about it. Be like, hey, this is not true. This is not true. If you're thinking that what you're doing right now isn't ever going to produce fruit, if you're never going to reap a harvest from the seeds that you're sowing, if you're thinking, hey, how everyone looks at me now is how it's going to be forever, Or if you're thinking, hey, the way that I grew up, my family, the way that they treated me, if they treated you in a way that was abusive when you were growing up, if you think that everyone is going to be like that in the world, you have to smash that, like obliterate it. You have to tell yourself that a part of yourself mentally is a liar, and a part of you wants to crawl into a hole and die. You want to be a coward, and you just want to be lazy and not do anything about it and accept that, hey, this is how it's always going to be. So it'll be way easier for me to just shrink up and do nothing about it and become numb to it. It's not true. It took me a long time to get to this place. I've had an interesting history, an interesting growing up, and a lot of people have. I'm not saying that I've had it worse than anybody else, because the way that someone else would grade what has happened to them may be severely different than what has happened to me, right? Like some people are more resistant to things than others. Some people are built for war, you know? When you hear that negative self talk, you just got to be like, that's not true. This is not true. And theologically, if you're a Christian, which I'll just tell you, if you're not a Christian, I would ask you this. One of the things that I thought of the other day is how I can be so confident in life and not think that scenarios or my feelings are so true, and how I don't get jealous of other people's success. The way that works is I believe in a God that has an infinite amount of supply of resources to give me in life, right? I believe theologically that he wants the best for me, since I accepted that his son died on the cross for all of us and I have salvation, right? I've received that gift and I'm living for him. Therefore, I believe in this infinite God that has an infinite amount of resources. Therefore, if I see someone else that has like huge success in something that I'm trying to do, I don't have to be jealous, because it's not a limited pool. It's not like, oh, hey, they got a billion. I don't know. In the case of, let's say, conquering the digital landscape. Let's say I see someone on social media that started at the same time as me and they have 15,000 followers and I have like, I don't know, at the time of this recording, 500 or something. I don't have to worry that they have all of that, because the God that I believe in has unlimited amount of resources. Therefore, I know that he can bless them and bless me at the same time or at different times. It has no effect. It has no effect. So those that don't believe in God, I would ask you, one, why not? And then when I say that, it's probably like, well, you probably don't believe it because you've probably been hurt by other Christians or seen other Christians on, well, probably social media nowadays, just being completely judgmental, which, you know what? I agree with you. It's terrible. It's bad. I'm trying to change that. That's part of the reason why I'm here. I'm trying to go against that message. I'm trying to go against the grain. Okay. I'm not perfect, dude. I did so much stupid stuff in my past. I'm not going to judge anybody for anything. And it's theologically not right. I know one of my dear friends, and he does not like Christianity at all. I actually asked him if he would take the time to post things for me, you know? And he was like, I don't have a problem with Christians. I have a problem with the religion itself, which, one, what that tells me is someone that was a Christian that would, by extension, be a visual representation of the religion, right? They must have presented it through their actions in an ill manner that left a mark on him, right? And I can't blame him. Like, there's a lot of that out there. If you read the Bible, though, like, actually, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be judging each other like that. That's so hypocritical. So I don't blame the people that don't believe, because they've seen other Christians be super judgmental. That happens a lot. It's still happening all the time. I don't understand it. I don't. That kind of segues into something that I've kind of had an irritation with for the past few weeks. It might be just me, and I could be completely incorrect here. And I'll just tell you, if there is anybody that listens to this in the future and I change my mind on this and it irritates you, I'm just going to tell you straight up how I approach life is if you're expecting me to be like other people on in the digital landscape and in social media and on YouTube, wherein when they say something, they're afraid to go back on it because of what their fan base says. That's not me. I think that is weak. And I know that I don't know everything. I'm obsessed with learning. And therefore, I hope I'm not correct about everything. Therefore, you will see me and hear me say things. And then later, I will change my mind. I'll change my mind because I know I'm not correct in everything I know. It's so crazy to me how people get afraid of their own fan base. Well, it isn't crazy to me because people are very cruel. But it also, the only reason you would be afraid of your own fan base is if you were idolizing what they said over what God says about you. Right? There's a lesson for you. Don't do that. People can type anything. They can type anything all day. It doesn't matter. Who cares? The truth is what God says about you. And in at least some portion, what you say about yourself. Because the actions you take, they are going to correlate with the belief you have in what God can do through you. Right? And so you'll hear me change my mind on here as the time goes on. I don't know when I'm going to stop podcasting, if ever. This might be what I do forever, you know? But something that's been irritating me lately is, and again, I could be wrong. This could be completely specific to my makeup and how God has made me. I hear a lot in the Christian world, in the development of Christian communities, and even outside of it, I hear the word safe space a lot. And I can't stand it. I understand that all of us need relationships and places that we can go where we can share whatever we want without being afraid of ridicule. We need spaces where we can share things with people and for the feedback to be constructive, not damaging, right? But this prioritization of safe space, and I don't know if it's because my makeup, God's just kind of made me a warrior. Like my whole life, I just don't quit. Hell, I had a Bryce Wood, who I've done podcasts with before I turned this into something else, which Bryce, if you listen to this, I love you, man. I hope your new gym program is going crazy good. I'm going to be giving you a call here soon. But Bryce Wood used to be my track teacher back in the day. And I was taking a beta blocker, which constricts your blood vessels, if I remember correctly. And then I was taking a medication that increased my heart rate for ADHD. And what happened when I was running the mile is the guy that was behind me was in second place. I was first because I was like the fastest long distance runner and short distance runner in my school. And usually I'm like smoking everybody. But this time the second place guy was like really close. And I remember when I was getting close to finishing that race, I felt like trash. And what was happening is my heart was beating really fast, but the one medicine was like constricting it. And it was a mess up by my psychologist to prescribe me both those medicines. And what happened is I was coming up to the finish line within this junior high timed mile thing. And my vision was like blacking out. This is 8th grade or 7th grade. I was blacking out. My vision was blacking out. And I still wouldn't quit. So I just say that to say that God's made me different in that respect. Like he's just made me not to quit. He's made me not to quit. That's just how I am. That's how I'm made. Therefore, my opinion on this safe space thing, it might be incorrect for the vast majority of people. But man, when I hear safe space, it makes me cringe because I feel like it sets people up for failure because the world is not safe. talk about it in the Christian communities. Like I look how Paul lived in the Bible, who wrote like most of the New Testament, man. And that guy, he got chained up. He was ridiculed by the Jews. He went through a lot, man. Like Christians go through a lot. And he talks about like in this Romans chapter 12 that has been deep in my heart lately. Verse 1, it says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." Now, the next verse goes on and says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind," which I'm sure you've heard that verse a ton of times. The whole thing goes like, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." I'm sure you've heard that verse. That's like highlight reel acceptable for sure. That's way more accepted into the masses. But verse 1 right before it, when I was reading that, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." That doesn't sound very safe to me. That don't sound safe. I don't want safe spaces, man. Do I want places and relationships like the disciples were to Jesus, where he could go and talk with them and love them like a brotherhood, right? Wherein they would build each other up. Yeah, that's good. But even there isn't 100% safe, because even brothers disagree. I don't want friends that always agree with me. I don't want people that tell me I'm right all the time. I want to know when I'm wrong. If you're completely setting me up in a 100% safe space, you are making me weaker than I could be. I have grown stronger and learned way more in life through my failures and the times that I have been brutalized. Way more than I was in like a soft, padded room, a safe space where no negative consequence came to me from my actions. Look at kids that were spoiled. And I can say this because when I was younger, I think I was one of them. I know I was one of them for sure. My parents were like well off, and I had my parents like bought me my car and stuff, and I'm not dumb enough to know that, yeah, that was okay and stuff, right? Well, I think it was okay, but I'm just saying I had it easier than some kids. But I will say this, I made my upbringing hard. No matter how awesome my parents did, which if you're listening, I love you and you did amazing. No matter how awesome of a life that they gave me and how much of an easy road they tried to give me, I myself, with my mistakes, made it hard. But I'm saying, as a spoiled kid, in some respects, financially, I didn't have to deal with the consequence of being in an unsafe space. Therefore, I took some things for granted that I wouldn't have if I was in an unsafe space, quote unquote, and had to deal with the ramifications of not being able to buy anything. There's one example. Jordan Peterson always says that you should be a monster. You just don't use it. You should be capable of being dangerous, right? This totally applies in martial arts too. Maybe that's why I think this way as well. It's like you want to be able to be a formidable force, right? Because there's some things in life, and even theologically, the devil will mess with you and put things in your life that you're going to have to fight for. Like those negative thoughts, that negative self-talk, you're going to have to smash it. I go crazy, dude. When I start hearing that, like it was just 1:30 and I'm getting groceries and I'm starting to hear these things in my head. I just actually get pissed off now. I'm like, that's not true. Like the Bible is the manual I use for my life. Like that's everything to me, right? And therefore, since that's everything to me, what's in there is 100% true. And so if that's true, then I know that negative self-talk about me is not going to do me any good. Now, I will say this, you can't just always positively talk about yourself, which also goes into the safe space thing. You shouldn't create a 100% safe space for yourself in your head because then you're never going to learn from your mistakes, which is another argument for I don't like safe spaces. I don't. I don't like that. I want to be able to be resistant to things, man. I want to build up some thick skin. Now, you can't just jump into the fire, well, some people can, there's just some people out there that just don't care about anything people say, right? I guess I'm probably one of them. Now, I didn't used to be. Well, maybe, actually. But I'm just saying, don't exercise in your head that you need some place to be 100% safe before you can open up and be yourself in it, because that won't work. That does not translate in life. If God calls you to something, or even if you don't believe and you're listening to this, if you are called to something and you try something that requires your greatest qualities, there is going to be barriers and there is going to be walls that you have to break through. And it's not going to be safe. Maybe there's some cases where in some minute situations, it will be safe. There's always that 1 in a million thing where I just walked in it and everything opened up. God can do that for you. God can open doors that no man can close, right? But there's so many stories in the Bible that, man, people had to fight for stuff, man. They had to fight for things. And God uses that to build the characteristics in them to accomplish their final calling, right? Like, I truly believe that's the whole reason I was called to compete in martial arts. And even now, dealing with my contacts bugging me. Even now, dealing with this concussion, right? These post-concussion syndrome symptoms. It's like I could have just never done that tournament and been 100% fine. What I learned entering those competitions and fighting about myself, I wouldn't have learned any other way. And you know what? Like, my concussion symptoms, yeah, it bugs me. Like, I cry about it sometimes, but that doesn't matter because I have faith that God, even if He doesn't heal me 100% ever, it was still worth it because He uses what the enemy meant for evil for your good. So I'll just tell you, if I stutter for the rest of my life when I get super tired, I don't care because I have faith that God will use it. Paul had a thorn, quote unquote, that he talked about. I can't remember what book of the Bible. He was talking about how he has prayed for God to remove this thorn from him multiple times. And what ends up happening is God tells him, my grace is sufficient. So that means that God, Darius Daniels, the pastor that I love, he brought this up one time in one of his messages. He was like, that means that God looked at the thorn and looked at the results that were coming from how it was affecting him. He's seen what it was doing. And he was like, okay, I like what that is producing in you. Even though the enemy put it there, I like the characteristics and the character traits that it's built in you and how that is supplementing the calling that I've called you to. So he left it. He left the thorn in Paul, whatever that thorn was. It could be anything like mental issues, or maybe he walked with a limp or something like that. Could be anything. But God liked the result of the character traits that it was building. And that doesn't sound like a safe space to me. Not really. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. When I look at Paul's life, he found joy when he was chained up, man. He literally wrote letters expressing his joy and how grateful he was for his opportunity that he was chained up as a prisoner, because now these Roman guards that were holding him have to hear the message of God that he's preaching to them that they would have never been able to receive if he wasn't a prisoner. That don't seem very safe to me, right? It doesn't at all. Just blows my mind, man. It's like, dude. And again, I'm just going to say that maybe it's just me. Maybe this is just the way I'm built. Maybe. And I'll close with this. I just would ask you to think about, if you do believe that narrative, think about this. If you always have to enter safe spaces in order to constructively think or handle things, I don't know about you, but my own mind isn't a safe space. And no matter how much someone loves me, brothers and sisters can disagree. And like I said earlier, there's a superpower in accepting being wrong and liking that you're wrong. That way, you will go on in the world with a greater knowledge of whatever you were wrong about. If you learn the truth of it, that better equips you to do whatever you're called to do in life. Think about that. Don't be afraid of entering non-safe spaces. Don't be afraid. God has you. He will take everything that the enemy meant for evil and turn it for his good. He doesn't waste anything, ever. And let's say you don't believe in Christianity or any of that messaging or the Bible or anything, just psychologically, even if you don't believe that the brain that you have in your head was created by an omnipotent being, it doesn't make sense to set yourself up to always need safe spaces or to even expect that to be around, because there's been seasons of my life where nothing was safe. Nothing. And I don't think there is a place that is completely safe. Like let's say I get a wife someday and she's like my life partner. I would want her to tell me if I'm being an idiot or a trash partner. So therefore, she couldn't be completely quote unquote safe to me, right? And there's probably a difference between the definition of safe and constructive criticism. But I think once you start telling yourself, I think once you start idolizing safe spaces, that's what it is. I think once you start idolizing safe spaces, it sets you up to inherently go towards safe spaces and subconsciously avoid danger over time. And I think that can end up causing you to miss opportunities that God has for you and opportunities in life, period. I think if you idolize safe spaces, that creates a subconscious pull to avoiding negative scenarios or situations that have a high probability of negative outcomes or something that'll make you feel bad. And just like this, Romans chapter 12, verse 1, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Kind of sounds like to me, you should have enough faith in God that even when something isn't safe, you're good to go. You're good to go. I'm going to close out there. Man, that negative self-talk stuff. It's straight. Oh man, it pisses me off. Maybe I'm just crazy. So anyway, I love you. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope this reaches you well. And if there's anything I could be praying for you for, or any questions that you have for me about the Bible or about life, just period. I don't know everything. I make mistakes. My understanding of the world is not 100% correct. It probably will never be. I would hope not, because that means I can still learn something and learn from others. And I'm okay if you disagree with me. I'll love you anyway. So yeah, I'll end it there. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.